Welcome back, everyone. I hope you all had a great lunch and are ready for an awesome afternoon with a lot of information for you all. So take advantage if you are here and can ask questions. I encourage you to take advantage of um, both ladies who are presenting on the WASP guide today. They have a wealth of information that they can share with you. And then as well, when you get into your breakout rooms, be sure to ask questions. Those are the people inside those breakout rooms are um, as close to experts in those competitions as we have, and they all do a wonderful job. They help us tremendously at state conference every single year, and we rely on them a lot. So they'll be able to answer a lot of your questions as well. So I don't really have anything else more to add other than let's welcome Athena Frank and Roberta Sams to present on our WhatsApp guide.
Good morning, everyone. Can you guys see my screen? Did I share it successfully?
Yes, you did.
Okay, perfect. I've learned to start checking that before I start talking with my students. We went virtual last week, and it's amazing the things that you don't check before you start going. So good afternoon, everyone. I see that there's a lot of seasoned teachers on here in addition to myself and Roberta. My name is Athena Frank, and I'm an instructor at Central Technology Center.
And I'm Roberta Sams, and I'm an instructor at Epic Charter Schools. Wow, we just want to tell you guys how excited we are about being virtual. Woohoo! Yay! You know you're excited. Okay, so I'm going to be monitoring the chat. So if you've got some questions that pop up along the way, please put them in the chat, and we'll try to cover those at the end if we have any time. Probably what most of you are interested in is what's changed and what's new. And so if you'll look at the Oklahoma WASP, and WASP, somebody likes to call it what's up. Anyway, but it is the Workforce Skills Assessment Program, and that is actually the competitive portion of BPA. So if Ms. Frank will take us to that advisor link right there, we'd like to talk to you a little bit about some of the resources that are available to you. And of course, down there of course, you know the important dates, but probably the most important things you need to know about are the Oklahoma mid-level and the secondary and post-secondary. Something else you might want to consider if you've got anyone interested in the State Executive Council, that application is pretty intense, pretty thorough. So make sure that you don't wait until the last minute to be going over that if you've got someone interested in obtaining or going for a position on the State Executive Council.
Roberta, I'm going to interrupt you. Can anyone see the screen? I'm just seeing a black screen and Athena's mouse rolling over it. But if that's just me, then that's fine. I just wanted to make sure everyone else could see your webpage.
I'm seeing it.
I could see it, but I don't know.
Okay.
I'm seeing it.
If it's just, then that's completely fine. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
I can see it now.
You can see it now? Okay, cool. Okay. So just want you guys to know that there's lots of awesome information available to you out there. There it goes. Okay. So I know that there's going to be a lot of you that do the presentation and the pre-submit events that you're going to be going woohoo on that next one, because we no longer will be required to have entry forms. Nobody was really checking them. They were just an extra step. And so that's been done away with. However, release forms are still very, very, very much required. And the reason we have those is because we want to make sure that we're abiding by all copyright laws. So any events that utilize those images or graphics, photographs, video, or audio, make sure somebody's excited. Thank you, Ms. Ward. It requires a release forms for individual, any individual represented in the project. So even the students that are competing in the event must sign a release form. Okay, so make sure that just go ahead and get it done in the very, very beginning. And if that team or that person makes it, that's all well and good. But if they don't, it's all well and good. You've got everything signed up front. So there are some things that are you can get out of your way quickly. Some information about SLC, we will be moving to Microsoft Office 2019. However, NLC at Nationals, we will still be using Office 2016.
right, so hey, let's look at some new, which, you know, if it's a new event, we call that a piloted event. So a new or piloted event this year for mid-level is going to be 2 events. One is the human resource exploration, just for our mid-level students. Those always start with the 900s. And then our virtual branding team, which actually all of our virtual events are open to all divisions and they compete against each other. So it's not, the mid-level don't compete against just mid-level. They compete against secondary and post-secondary. And actually our mid-level students are kind of rock stars in these virtual events, to be quite honest. Also exciting are some new adopted events. So last year they were piloted, they were new. They had so many students that participated and had such great feedback that this year they were adopted as regular full-time events. And those 2 events are the 920 Digital Citizenship for the mid-level and the Financial Portfolio Management team.
Okay, so we do have some new events, those pilot events for secondary and post-secondary. The Oklahoma BPA promotional video, that is just a state event, and it's to promote Oklahoma BPA. So those of you that struggle with trying to get find enough places for your kids to compete, you've got more talented students than what you ever dreamed of. And so this might be a good place for them to jump off and start with. The second one is the financial audit and it's a post-secondary event. Python programming has been a long time coming, but we are thankful that we finally got it. And the podcast production team, for those of you that have been interested in audio for a while and wanting to have an event for them, Patrick worked really hard on this, and I think Patrick Schultz at the national office, and I think it's going to be a great event. Health insurance and medical billing, health leadership, and medical terminology are all new events for the new health area. So these are going to be some great additions.
So we also have several event changes relating to just our high school, our secondary students, and our post-secondary, which are our adult students. So starting in numerical order, looking at the 100 fundamental accounting, this event, the language has always been a little bit difficult to understand. And so this year SEAC really tried to clean that up based on that recommendation system. So just to be clear, fundamental accounting is limited to those high school students currently completing their first year of accounting. If they were in accounting 1 last year, they should not be in this event. They should be looking at advanced if they're in their second year. And this event may not be repeated. So if they competed last year in fundamental accounting, they need to step up to advanced accounting this year. So that's an even playing field. 100 fundamental accounting is truly for those students right now, those newbies learning accounting. If you're looking for number 330, you'll see that there's just been a little bit of a name change, not a lot. Visual Basic was removed from the name. Linux 350 was adopted as a full event, again, based on a lot of participation and excitement last year when it was piloted. If you are looking for 415 digital publishing, well, it's still there, but based on some recommendations from our partner Adobe, that event has now been changed to Advanced Desktop Publishing. The number is the same, it just has a name change, and make sure you look at those competencies as well. This one, Roberta is really excited about. So Roberta, are you excited about 445?
I'm excited.
She's excited, okay, because this is an event that Miss Roberta has won and done very, very successful at the state and national team for many moons, because we've been around for many moons. So as highlighted in yellow, 445 broadcast news production team for the first time this year, starting this year, is going to be offered to our fabulous and talented post-secondary students. And we are pretty rock stars in this event at nationals as the secondary level. I can only imagine how well those students are going to do now that they've stepped up into those adult competitions. And now I'm excited because now we're moving into the 500 events, and 540 ethics and professionalism has always been offered to our adult or post-secondary students. This year, for the first time, again, drum roll, that event, 540, will now be offered this year to our secondary events. And if you've never looked at that event, I really encourage you to do so. It's a scenario-based event. Students draw a top, they look at a scenario, they go in and did their presentation using the ethics and professionalism manual that is provided on the national website. Also, there's been one quick change for those parliamentary procedure teams, so make sure that you do catch this on the rubrics. If you have a team, you know how difficult it is for your secretary to be busy, 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 taking those notes, and yet trying to earn all of those points on the rubric that are associated with participation. It's difficult. This year, keeping that in mind, that rubric no longer says includes a secretary for participation. Actually, the secretary is excluded from the points on the rubric regarding their debate participation. Their participation points will primarily come from their minutes that they are taking during the meeting, the mock meeting. But still, if they can participate, I think they should still do so. But at least that takes a lot of stress off of those secretaries. And if you're looking for number 250, medical office procedures, it's now been moved down into our health area and is now named and numbered 610 health administration.
You guys will be happy to know that I am not going to read this next slide to you, okay? It's probably my biggest pet peeve is reading slides, someone reading to me, but this has some really important information on it, but I would like to refer you to page 12 in the Oklahoma WASUP guidelines for all of these presentation component events. There are actually 28 events. So make sure that you review your guidelines very, very carefully and know what exactly is entailed. Lots of these, it's not just a presentation. Some of them, they may have to take a written test or a technical test. So make sure that you're completely aware of what's on those WASUP guidelines. Mid-level judged events as well. There are 9 of those on page 14. And you guys, the mid-level area is growing. That division is growing in leaps and bounds, and it's because you're feeding them, you're helping them, and we're really excited about that. And notice that we do have a piloted events for them in human resource exploration. So there's some awesome opportunities for them, but keep in mind, read those guidelines.
So looking at our pre-submitted events, my gosh, I'm not going to read this to you either. So I have to follow my partner's role here and not read all of these to you. But here are some pretty significant little bits of information that you definitely want to be aware of. So if I'm looking at pre-submitted events, and I usually have my students compete in several of these, as does Roberta, I'm going to be looking at pages specifically 19 through 22 in the Oklahoma WASUP, because those are my go-to pages. Everything from how to upload a file, how to share those files, what I should name files, and even down to what files need to be uploaded. So these are my pages of reference. I even have them sticky. That tells you how important they are in my notebook of much goodness. So there are 21 pre-submitted events for the secondary and post-secondary students at the state level. This deadline is pretty crucial. It's a pretty firm deadline, 4 p.m. Friday, February the 12th. So if I have a 4 o'clock deadline on Friday, February the 12th, I'm going to fib to you a little bit. I'm going to fib to my students. I'm probably going to back that hard deadline up at least a week, especially with all of the things we may have, ice storms, electricity outages, and of course, COVID, which we never know if we're going to be in school one day or not. So I'm going to back that hard deadline up at least a week, and I'm going to set soft deadlines along the way. If you will notice on the right side where I've highlighted SLC only, please be aware that events 545, prepared speech, 555, presentation management individual, and 560, presentation management team, are only prejudged at the state level. That involves uploading a videotape of these various presentation events. Then at nationals, these events are not pre-submitted. So just be aware that's what that means. Also, as Roberta highlighted a moment ago, we have a brand new event that's a state-only event, and that is 001 Oklahoma BPA promotional video. If you're looking for that event and that WASUP guideline, it is the very last page in the Oklahoma WASUPs because it is a state-only event. We also have several mid-level pre-submitted events. There are 6 events, the same deadline, February the 12th, and again, just make sure that you start early. Don't miss the deadline after students have put so much heart and effort, and you as well, into getting these students ready to go. It just breaks your heart when your computer doesn't work, or you have no electricity, or it's getting close to 4 and your bell goes off. and it's getting close to 4 o'clock and your upload speed is just not uploading as fast as you think it needs to go. So please eliminate some of the stress on yourself and your students as well, and make sure that those months of effort have gone into being uploaded in a good time span. And the reference pages I would use for the mid-level that I would go ahead and indicate by importance by putting a sticky note on would be pages 11 through 16. Again, how to upload to the cloud, how to set those sharing features, how to name your files, and anything that needs to be uploaded are all really easily available in those pages 11 through 16 on the mid-level guidelines.
And I might want to add a little bit of a note there. Keep in mind that sometimes it takes a little bit to upload those things. So leave time, please, please, please leave yourself plenty of time. So on the BPA state deadlines, mid-level, page 11, secondary, post-secondary, page 19 through 20. Man, look at all those deadlines there. So December 1 looks pretty important for your virtual contests. And we're just thankful that they did extend that because of COVID and schools being in and out. December 1st for those state officer applications. Once again, if you have already waited this long, you better step it up, because there's a lot to get done there. They're going to have to ask for letters of recommendation, get photos taken, figure out a budget for their campaign. There's just lots to be done. State officer candidate screening is December 15th. And I don't know, Ms. Paxton, if it's going to be virtual or how that's going to work right now, but I'm sure you will be letting us know soon enough. January 11th through the 12th, through February 12th for SLC registration. Once again, don't be late. January, because it takes a while to get all the paperwork done through your school. So just don't wait till the last minute. Online testing. For the 26th through the 15th, and I just want to remind you that as the advisor, you are not the person that's supposed to be the testing liaison for BPA. It should be someone else on your campus, okay? We don't want anybody to ever file a grievance or something over that. February 8th, recognition awards and scholarships. We've got lots of kids that are certainly should be up for those scholarships, and some great advisors as well. BPA Care Statesman Torch Awards. I think the new website is going to be making those applications much easier. The Quality Chapter Award, you guys, this is online. I mean, it's a brief application, and then it's about things that you do in your chapter every day. So take advantage of it. Pre-submitted events, like she said, thank you, Miss Athena, the deadline is 4 p.m. Don't be that person that's calling Paxton and begging and putting her in that position. So just make sure that you get stuff done early. Mid-level competition day is on the 24th, and that's, if you've never been, it's a pretty awesome opportunity because their little faces are shining. May 9th and 10th, State Leadership Conference, and I'm excited to hopefully that be in person and no more virtual. But anyway, I guess we will find that out soon enough as well.
So if I were an advisor, this is probably the point I would want to be paying attention to. I'd probably even grab out a pencil and pen and go, oh, let's talk about some tips and pointers from those seasoned advisors. So we're going to spend the rest of the workshop time looking at, as I told Roberta, the trifecta to success on the journey to SLC. And the trifecta is, of course, as has been mentioned earlier today, planning, preparation, and then practice, 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 practice.
Okay, so in the planning process, I know that every school is different, but make sure you understand your school's policies and the budget. For instance, if you have a student that places second, is your school going to support them to go to nationals? Some tech centers only support first place, some first and second. Some schools will allow as many students that want to go can go as long as they raise the money. Does your school allow fundraising? Especially you newbies, there are lots of questions, and we'll be happy to help you out to kind of fix, vet your way through that, okay? But ask all those questions. The Oklahoma WASAP, know it and love it. I just can't tell you enough how important it is that you know that students can only compete in 2 events max. That's 2 individual or 1 team and 1 individual. And I know that you're going to say, well, I see kids going up on that stage a whole lot more than just twice. Well, they are in virtual events or in open events, and both of those are unlimited and they don't count towards your total. Make sure you help students identify areas and events for success. As I like that when she says veteran teacher, she didn't say old, she said veteran. A veteran teacher, I can tell you that chances of kids just raising their hands when they don't really know what BPA is and saying, oh, I want to compete, I want to compete. You might have a few of those, but I would say on the other end of that spectrum, it's more those kids that are going, well, I'd kind of like to do it, but I don't really know what I would do. I really don't know what all is involved. And so you as the advisor, you've observed them in the classroom, you see what their strengths and weaknesses are, and you might play to those and just sit down and talk to them, because I promise you, if you have a one-on-one conversation with them, you're going to find a whole lot more success. Help students, commitment. Man, this one is a big one. In broadcast, we always have the broadcast teams. And I'm telling you, team events are very, very rewarding. They're also very stressful because you've got so many different personalities. And whenever you've got 4 that have real strong personalities on a team, chances of that team blowing up and coming back together and blowing up and coming back together pretty often are really good. So just make sure that you're keeping an eye on them and understand that, make sure that they understand the commitment that they're putting in for that team. Because just like last year, I had a team that we were getting ready to go to state, and I had 2 members of the team say that they couldn't go to nationals because they had other plans. Well, that's kind of important information to know, because now that's going to hurt the opportunity for those other students. So just make sure that they understand the commitment, because nationals always seems to fall during prom time or graduations, just lots of things going on, and senior trips, things like that. Read, highlight, know the competition WhatsApp. I don't know. I think it's important that the teacher knows it, but I've witnessed teachers that just hand out a copy of the WhatsApp guideline to the student and say, here you go, and expect them to read it and know it and understand it. And I understand that you new teachers are going, I don't even understand it. I don't know what's going on. Reach out and ask for help. That's what we're here for. I promise we'll help you. But make sure that you know those guidelines and that your student knows the guidelines. Athena was telling me a story yesterday about how she had students that were competing in a team event and they got ready to present, and the judge stopped them at 10 minutes, and their event was supposed to go for 15. But the judge had just come out of an event that was 10 minutes and didn't realize that there was a difference in the presentation time. But because those students knew their WhatsApp guidelines, then they could call that attention to the judge, and they just had a copy of their guidelines with them so that they could show it to the judge, even though the judge had a copy of it. Sometimes they're just moving between rooms so quickly, they don't really have time to really intensely review everything. So I think it's important that they know those and they felt confident enough to step up and say what they knew was correct. Make sure they understand the guidelines for cell phones and sharing equipment and judges' feedback. If they don't hand that self-addressed stamped envelope to the judges and ask for feedback, you're probably not going to get any feedback from the judges. So make sure that they know all about those. When it comes to resources, I can't tell you how many times kids have come in and as an event director, they want to talk to you about, there were kids in there with books. They had books or they had notes or whatever, and they thought they were turning someone in for cheating, when in fact, those resources were allowed in the test. So make sure that your students know whether or not they can use resources in the test, printed materials, notes, whatever. The only thing they can have in there is digital. So they can't bring their cell phone in or anything like that. Requirements, make sure that they understand whether or not it's a pre-submit, pre-test, and whether or not there are finals. Last year at SLC, it was really sad because it's like 6 o'clock in the evening and the hotel's pretty much empty because everyone is left to go to dinner. But there were 2 students that we could not get in touch with because they had left to go with their group and they had made it to finals. So just make sure that if you have students that are in an event with finals, that they know when and where the finals are going to be posted, and that you make an effort to make sure that they get there. Don't forget the deadlines. Submit and test early. Don't wait until the last minute, and with testing too, because you just never know what's going to happen. Oh, this is a long one. I'm talking to myself. We discussed yesterday how long we could talk. So for preparation, make sure you talk to other advisors. Whenever you talk to other advisors, though, you have to remember that we're going to be loyal to our students first. So we're going to share lots of general information, probably not going to share the most intimate information about our keys to success. We'll give you some generals, but probably not everything. So don't be mad at us because we're competitive, but we're going to give you the broad and share information with you. And I think you're going to be excited because they're starting to share things at the national level now where you're going to be able to see people's presentations and things like that. So that's going to make it a whole lot better. Go back and look at Google BPA and Google BPA past events. I mean, you can go in and just do a Google search for video production team BPA, and you'll see the winning videos. You'll see all kinds of videos for BPA. Some are winning and some maybe not so much, but it will give your students an idea about what to do maybe and what not to do. So and testing resources, there's all kinds of information out there. You just have to take some time. The past regional test keys are on CTU for the past 7 years. So we don't have regionals in Oklahoma. If you're in Texas, they do have regionals. So there are some states that require those. We don't. We're fortunate to not have to do that, but those tests are available just as a practice. The national BPA resources at members.bpa.org. There's all kinds of resources there. And I think Athena is going to show you some more here in just a little bit. When it comes to project management, make sure that you break that project down into a little bit smaller parts. Don't just say, okay, you have to do a 5-minute video over this. There you go, see you later. No, you need to set some soft deadlines and say, I need to see your storyboard by this time. I would like to see your script. I would like to, and have those along the way, because it doesn't come to them in a vision. Okay, so you're going to have to kind of step them along. It makes things easier on you, and it will make things easier on them. Create and use a checklist by all means. If you give them a checklist, and if you think about it, it's kind of like creating a database. You know, it's a pain in the patootie to create it to begin with, but once it's created, oh man, the amount of time it saves you. It's the same way whenever you create an itinerary or your checklist for your students for each event, you can reuse it year after year after year. Make sure you assign individual and team responsibilities. Don't overlook the small things. Whenever a group goes in to present, somebody needs to be in charge of setting the equipment up. Somebody else is in charge of making sure that the judges get all the information that they need to get. Somebody has to make sure that the computer, everything is running and it's ready to project. Divvy that information up so that everybody feels as though they are important and a part of the team, and they have to have that responsibility as well. Like I said, establish and meet those deadlines, have a schedule, and make sure that they know. I've found it to be very, very helpful if they know that someone else other than me is going to be listening to them. So the first time that they practice, then I let it be me. The second time they practice in front of a small group of their peers in the classroom, I've had the principal come in, the superintendent, other teachers, anybody I can drag in to watch them practice. And by the time they've practiced so many times, they really don't care who they're presenting in front of. So it just makes it a whole lot easier on them. Follow up regularly, make sure that you're checking in on them. And with registration, hotel, meals, clothing, and forms, oh man, get your registration turned in early. You know that the earlier you turn it in, the better chance you'll have of being in the host hotel. And for those newbies that don't understand how important that is, unless you just really like to cart your projector and computers up and down, 3 or 4 blocks away, and all you have is a bus for transportation. So you're going to be hiking up and down the street with all that and trying to figure out where your kids are. That's not what you want to do. So try to get your information in as early as possible. Figure out how the kids are going to eat. There's nothing wrong with that itinerary saying that we're going to order pizza and have it delivered to the hotel. It's difficult for kids to go out downtown. Lots of places to eat. It's cool downtown. However, time can be a real problem. So sometimes just having it delivered to the hotel is the answer. I can attest, as Athena can as well, as I don't care how seasoned we are and how much wisdom we think we have. I know that for a fact, last year, both of us were talking on the phone as I was at JCPenney's and she was someplace else shopping the night before for slacks for young men that indicated they didn't have any problem with clothes the whole time, but they just kept missing the dress rehearsal times, but they would have it. And then the day before they say, I don't have any dress clothes. So don't do that. Don't be that person. Just go ahead and force them to do a dress rehearsal. And if they don't, then you're just not going to take them. And somehow that will help you. Okay. Make sure you get your forms turned in and that you have them ready. I always scan mine so I have a digital format because I may not have that red binder with me at all times, but I always have my cell phone. See, I put her to sleep. She almost didn't change that slide. So the advisors there, I said, make sure that you have your printed and digital paperwork. Make sure that you have all of your confirmations for your hotels, for registration, as well as your hotel registration. Make sure you have everyone's cell numbers so that you can contact them. Their medical forms, medical release forms, and code of conduct. Those code of conduct and medical forms are all out there as resources on that first little link that we went to. The WASAP guidelines, I carry a copy with me. I know I'm old school, but I just like to have it with me. A detailed itinerary, man, even to the point you need to know exactly what time that they're expecting. Not, we're going to go eat dinner at 6. No, I want you downstairs at 5:45. So yeah, be really, really specific, and that way you don't leave any room for someone saying they didn't know. Procedures for on-site at SLC. For those of you that have never been there, whenever you get, I don't know, 2,000 kids in the hotel and they're running all different directions and you're trying to give out name tags and stuff, it's really best if you determine what your plans are before you get on site. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to meet at the bottom of the stairs or to the left of the front doors or to the right of the front doors. This is our meeting place for everything. And I'm going to go pick up the paperwork. You're going to stay here. I don't want anybody leaving unless there are 2 of you going to the restroom. I don't want people going by themselves until you figure out where you are. And so just those kind of deadline, those kind of things just make things easier. Students, individual envelope and contest bag. I stole this from Athena because whenever you have so much equipment and they're liable to pick up the wrong laptop that doesn't have their presentation on it or whatever. So make sure that we put little tags on them on their individual pieces of luggage for the equipment. And it will say the name of the student's name, their event, what materials they need, the room, and the time. And if you get there early enough, that's another thing, get there a little bit early so that your students, not just you walking around and holding them by the hand and saying, here's room so and so, but that those students, empower them to say, okay, you have a map, you need to go find your place where you're going to be competing. Don't wait, go find it right now. And if you have a problem, text me, call me, so that you've already started that process, that they know how to contact you. But I think it's important that that's one of the most important things probably that they learn, is that responsibility of being on their own and taking care of business. They need to have a copy of their WASP guidelines, have that detailed itinerary with expectations at SLC. I always remind my students that they should have the same respect for the custodial staff at school as they do for the superintendent. And I think the same way needs to go whenever we are the guest at the hotel. Please remind your students to not just put their feet up all over the furniture, and that they're trashing the place out, that there are trash receptacles available, and that they need to put their stuff away and not leave it a mess. And that goes for advisors too. Make sure that you're courteous to the staff there at the hotel as well. And as far as dress, let them dress to compete head to toe. And I realize that if you're driving from way out in Western Oklahoma, you may not want your kids to be all dressed up on the bus or whatever, but I think it's really imperative whenever they get there that they are dressed and ready, because you just never know what's going to happen. And I know that as an advisor, I'm not, or nor is Miss Athena, we can actually say we've given our students our shoes because they forgot their dress shoes because they had on their flip-flops or their house shoes whenever they got on the bus. So just make sure that everybody's dressed and ready.
Yeah, I think the most interesting one is when they have one shoe and not the other, which is
How does that even happen? Yeah. Or two
don't
different
know.
kinds of shoes.
They swore they had it. It just didn't make it where it needed to make it. All right. So, hey, looking at practice, which is one of the most important things you can do, is to really be successful, you've got to practice. So looking at our presentation events, and we have a ton of presentation events. The events at a glance, which I've highlighted, are on pages 16 through 18 of the secondary and post-secondary guidelines, are going to be a lifesaver. They're going to tell you so many things. How many of your students can compete? If you tell your students that you can have 3 teams, for example, in parliamentary procedure, you can only have 2. So please make sure that you look at that and have your students look at that. There are so many things. It will tell you if there's a pretest. It will tell you if there's a presentation. It will tell you how many can compete from your chapter, if they can have resources, if it uses other types of resources, if a computer is provided. So please make sure that you definitely spend some time on those tables, because they are lifesavers, truly, truly. Looking at the competencies for each event, looking at the resources, as we've talked about. If your student does not take in an accounting book and they're sitting next to somebody that does have one, you're probably going to hear about it. They obviously need a calculator as well. Pretty tough to do accounting if you don't have a calculator. Rubrics are so important. And granted, all of our presentation events will have rubrics in the WASP. When I do our mock presentations, I'm going to give those judges copies of that rubric. And your students need to know what they're being judged on as well. They need to know where the points come from. Look at the spec points. Don't ever lose spec points. If they're asked to turn in a set of release forms on site, or maybe a second copy of a global marketing team plan with Works Cited, then that's something that are just give me points as long as they have it to give. So make sure they get all of those spec points, including the hitting on the time. If there's a time limit, which on presentation events, there are time limits. Some of them have minimum as well as maximum time limits. Make sure they practice. That's the only way they're going to hit those times. Deadlines. If there are deadlines, if it's a pre-submitted event, if it has to be uploaded, we have just talked about that all day, about meeting those deadlines. Always start early. It just reduces stress on you, and it reduces stress on your teams as well. And so for presentation events, as Roberta's already mentioned, you need to practice with that equipment. You do your students zero justice if you are always hooking up the equipment for them. They have to be able to troubleshoot. What if their battery dies? What if their monitor won't come on? What if, what if, what if? I know if Cody Gervaisi's on here, he can talk about the time he was at nationals and made it to the finals with a half of a power cord. So left the other half plugged in at the hotel room. What did he do? The team did some great troubleshooting. They just put on a smile, turned that laptop around, did their presentation, made it to finals, and walked away with the gold medal. So there you go. The judges were impressed that the students were able to actually troubleshoot. Let them practice with the equipment. Let them practice giving those judges those submission items, that handshake, that smile. Have them do as much mock competition. And when I put intro to outro, I mean alpha to omega, beginning to end. They need to practice walking into a unique room. How do they address the judges? How do they do their presentation? Who's setting up what? Who's turning in what? And how do they exit? Are they memorable? Do they leave an impression? If they're going to ask for judges questions or feedback, make sure that you put them in front of some warm bodies that will actually ask them judges in advance. This was something I showed Roberta this week, and she thought it was pretty cool. Pretty cool? Yeah. PowerPoint 365, which is what I'm currently using. If your students or you have a Microsoft email account, it's free. And one of the options under slideshow tab is rehearse with coach. You can either have your students, for example, today, I could be rehearsing with the coach. I could have every single slide actually get some metric feedback, or I could do it at the end. I could learn my pace. Did I use any sensitive words? Do I have too many go-to words like or am I pausing or not pausing? And so the rehearse with coach is great. And everybody that's in that virtual environment now, they can do this at home. So this is a pretty snazzy thing, totally free. It's under the slideshow tab. Just click rehearse with coach and let your students practice those presentations. I also recommend that they record and videotape and get some critique. Now that my students this last week have been in that virtual world, they can even use Zoom. They can pull up Zoom. They can record their presentation. The minute they end it, it's going to be downloaded as an MP4 file that they can send or share to me to look at and critique. And you can send that on to other judges. They don't have to be physically present. That's not how they're judged at state and nationals. A lot of those pre-submitted events are actually sent on electronically to be judged. So that's just a really great skill as well. And then on-site prep, if you have a student that's competing in an event that has an additional topic, such as network design team, what about extemp? Extemp or contemporary issues are completely done on-site. Then you need to have those students practice that event as well. I would go out to CTU. I would print out some of those past extemp topics, cut them up into little strips, let them draw out of a cup, go give those students 10 minutes and then have them come out and give me a 3 to 5 minute presentation. So again, you need to practice and use all of these great resources that are provided to us so that the students are ready to truly compete at the state level. And it's going to be a better experience for them and you as well. Dress review, we've talked about this. Yeah, we've given our shoes away. Yeah, we've done that a time or two. We can't help some of the boys very well because sometimes their feet are bigger than mine. So we've had some students show up. I've always regretted when they've talked me into not going dressed to compete. I've always regretted that. So if you can make that happen, I know some of you live many, many hours away, but at least the night before, even if you're traveling in and staying at the hotel, at least the night before, have them put on head to toe their complete dress clothing and make sure that they meet dress code. They work so hard, and then it's such a shame to be disqualified or not allowed on stage to get the rewards. That just breaks my heart. It truly does. So what about those paper and production events? So paper events, most of our financial events are actually conducted on paper. And what about all the production events such as Word and Excel, which are mostly held out at Tulsa Tech on their computer labs? Again, the same practice and preparation is going to apply. They've got to know the competencies for their event. They've got to practice those competencies. If they can take resources in, such as a style manual or an accounting book, they should definitely do so to be successful. Rubrics, look at the rubrics if they're given rubrics before they turn something in. That's what the judges are going to be grading them on. Make sure that they get used to looking at rubrics. As teachers, we take that for granted to look at rubrics. Sometimes students don't use those as often as we do. So make sure that they're looking at rubrics if they're provided. We've also hit on Googling how many past tests are out there. So here's a little heads up. On our events that are posted out on CTU, those fabulous 7 years worth of tests and answer keys, by the way, including scenarios and topics such as extemp and contemporary issues, there are a couple of years, such as 2019, I believe, that says not available. But if you really want those events, you can Google those events, and other people have made them available online just for you to use. So they're out there, guys. Just go look at them. Now we have this great new online test system, and I would open it up. However, based on what happened a moment ago when Paxton said I had a blank screen, I may not do that, but I have provided the links. You do need to have your member ID. So your students will be logging in with their 8-digit member ID. And then the password is OK BPA 2020. And those are going to be those objective types events. So not the scenarios, not the topics, but those great objective type events are going to be online. They're going to be instantly graded. You know, our students love instant feedback. We do too, guys. So that's going to be a really great resource. Thank you for Paxton so much for making that available to us this year. We also have several state and national resources. Under the gateway, the members.bpa.org, when students log in, they will have a new link called resources. I planned to show this to you, but I wasn't sure it would show up. But the resources are available. CEAG members actually put those in this summer for every event that we could, and I can vouch for the 500 level events. We have resources for every single event in the 500s. This is new. This is what I've been really excited to tell you. And I got to say a shout out to our own state advisor, Paxton Caven, because this option actually started at home in Oklahoma. This option started right here at our own Paxton Caven, that we are now going to be able, starting this year, the opportunity to purchase tests from National BPA. Just opened up this weekend. The 2019 competitive event package for both middle level and secondary post-secondary is now available for immediate download. For the mid-level students, it's $20. It does contain all of the state and national answer keys and tests. And if there are preliminaries and finals, you're getting both versions. So it'll come in a compressed download folder. You'll need to extract, open those up, and then there will be a separate folder for state and a separate folder for nationals. They're all there. They're all there. And the same applies for all of our secondary and post-secondary state and national tests with answer keys for both preliminary and finals if the event has a preliminary and final event. Those events are $40. And they include all of the events from 100 to 500. So there are a lot of events available. Brand new starting this year. If it is successful, which I think it's going to be, I've already spent my money. If you think that this is successful, then I think it will continue on. So we're starting this year, came up all the way to the board level for approval, but it started right here, based in Oklahoma. So thank you so much, Paxton. I've included the direct link. It's out on the National BPA website through membersbpa.org. And I've already downloaded it. Very quick download. Top question's going to be, how do we pay for it? I get that. I teach at a school too. So let me talk to you about the payment options in just a second. I did want to show you why I thought it was valuable as an instructor to go ahead and download these state and national tests. As you know, if you're looking at competencies, and I just happened to pull up the first one, which was Fundamental Accounting 100, we have access to 7 years of this event out on CTU. And so you can look, for example, I know this might be a little blurry, I apologize, but you can look, for example, at job 1 at the regional level, analyzing transactions, and then creating a balance sheet. As you move up to the state level, it gets more difficult. And we haven't had state resources before. We've never seen, nor have our students, what a state test look like, or how it differs unless this student competed in this event in 2019. And they can't repeat it. So there you go. You can see that it steps up to now they're doing special journals. And then as they go on to the national level, it gets increasingly more difficult, as it should. It's a national level event. These are the best of the best in the country. Now they're looking at doing depreciation, inventory costing, and financial analysis. So now they're big kids, as I like to call them. The other great thing about having these types of tests and purchasing these for your students and having them available is, do you think other advisors are going to be purchasing these? Absolutely. So if you don't have these resources that we've talked about, other people will, and your students are starting the race a little bit behind. So I really encourage you to consider purchasing these and using these in your chapter for preparation materials. To purchase these, I'm pretty excited that one of the payment options is a check. So for those of you at a school that need to go through the extensive purchase order approval process, and I get that, I have to have 4 signatures when I do mine, and we're virtual now, so I understand, I feel the pain. You do have the option to purchase by check, so you can go ahead and get those purchase orders processed and pay by check. You also have PayPal and credit and debit card options. There was a little bit of a charge as well. I don't really remember if it was a processing. It was like $1.50 or $1.60. So allow a little bit for that. You can go ahead and look at it and see what that price would be. There is a terms of agreement for download. Of course there is. We don't own these products. National BPA owns and pays authors to write these products. However, please make sure that you understand what I've put in red: fair use guidelines, academic integrity. You should not be reproducing, distributing, transmitting, broadcasting. Selling is a big one. You can't license or get, license this as your own or modify it, except as authorized by the National BPA Center. So for today, just so you know, I did get permission from the national staff before I showed you those cover pages of the fundamental accounting. So I did my due diligence in advance. I also asked just a couple of key points. So I did ask the national staff, so I've downloaded this, I paid for it. Is it okay if I print it out and have it in a notebook, a classroom chapter binder? The answer was yes. I asked if I could put it on my network drive that is limited to simply my BPA chapter members. The answer was yes. The problem comes with wanting to put that available for the world, people that are not our members. You cannot put that out on a web server. You cannot sell that. So for further clarification, make sure you get all the information you need to know from the national staff. I'm sure they'll be glad to clarify any other questions you may have. And I understand it's a virtual world. And so getting that information to students may be more difficult now than ever before, but I still think it's a worthwhile option. And I am super excited about having the option to see what a state and national test looks like. And keep in mind that you're not the only one that can purchase it. Those students packing those credit and debit cards, and they can PayPal like crazy. Your students, if you give them the link, are also completely eligible to purchase any of these tests, and some of them will. It comes out, we have over 100 tests. It comes out to less than 60 cents per test. So that, I think that's a bargain. I think that's definitely a bargain for our hardcore competitors. All right. Mr. Roberta, this is yours.
Hey, we're finished. Yay! Yeah, I get to talk a whole lot here on this last one. To begin with, I just want to tell everyone that helped out last year with the Spring Leadership Conference. We couldn't do it without you. For those of you that volunteer to proctor and administer tests, last year was probably the best year that I've experienced working with BPA. Everything went really, really smoothly, and it just makes a difference whenever you sign up that you show up, because that way no one else has to pull your weight. And we understand that everyone has students. Everyone has students, but we also understand that there's jobs that have to be done, and we appreciate you guys stepping up and assuming that servant leader role. We're going to open it up right now if there's any questions. I know that there's one down there for from John, Mr. Cervasi, and he says, since this is technically curriculum, are we able to use the 412 funds for this? Hey, I think I'm going to have to turn that over to Miss Paxton.
Please say yes.
I believe that.
Yeah, that chipmunks. Them chipmunks are really telling a story.
Yeah. Um, okay, according to Christy, Miss Lofton, she says the test cannot be purchased with 412 funds.
Yeah, Jackie, you sound like a cute little chipmunk.
Miss Gleaves has a question about purchasing tests. She said, can you purchase only one per chapter, even if there are multiple advisors?
You know, that's a really good question. I was looking at myself and looking out for my students, and it just came available this weekend, and I was so excited to share it with everyone. I honestly didn't ask about the multiple advisors. If it is purchased for a school, Sherry, if you just have like Francis Tuttle, okay, I know you guys have lots of different ones. You have the Deer Creek and all the different campuses, and I kind of anticipate one for your physical location, kind of like we do our site licenses. But just to clarify, I would definitely go to the guru, Patrick Schultz. Just fire him off an email, and he is El Pronto Ola about responses. I think though what he's going to say is probably one per campus, probably one per campus. So I would anticipate that our Sapulpa campus would purchase their own, and then I have my copy for the Drumright campus. But please verify with Patrick Schultz just to make sure that we don't want to get our hands slapped, because we definitely want to keep offering this as an available option for our advisors and our members. And so we don't want to get in trouble. We want to make sure we're on top of that.
Christy, can you elaborate as to why we can't use it if we're using it as curriculum driven?
Yes, one of the questions that Jackie brought to me was the hesitation is if you are purchasing tests for your students, you're only purchasing it for the competitors. So that would, because normally when you're purchasing testing, you would purchase it for your entire class or for your entire student, section, whatever course you're teaching. These would only be purchased for students competing. So therefore it would be considered an activity account thing and not a 412 money.
I have another question about that, because I don't want to speak for anyone else, but in my class, especially those production-based ones, they would be assignments. That's part of my reason for asking it. And I don't understand how it's any different than DECA programs using their funds, because they have a very similar option that I know that we can use funds for.
Jackie, is your microphone working yet?
I would like to say I kind of agree with that, because all of those events have the rubrics. You've got your interview skills, you've got your scenarios, you've got the business plans, you've got your production events, you've got your accounting. And so I could see where those would be used, as Trent did earlier, talk about co-curricular. I think those, actually, I do use some of those rubrics and things right now in my event. So I would think I'm planning on integrating those on, not just for my competitors. I would use those classroom.
When we ask,
Say that again, Trent.
when as the committee, we decided to do that on the financial committee at National